culture.
We are all guilty of falling asleep in a history lesson because sometimes we all prefer to be colouring in maps in geography. However, it's very difficult not to have heard of the Nazis, with the infamous Führer Adolf Hitler, or Adolf if you're American, leading the brainwashing of an entire nation, despite the legend of him having a part of his anatomy in the Albert Hall. We are aware of some of the hideous things the Nazi government were capable of, but there are many more stomach-churning war crimes that most of us have never heard of who did them. So here are 10 of the most evil Nazis that you're likely never to have previously heard of, and be warned, their crimes are extremely shocking, and so are my pronunciations of their names, but I'm not going to apologise for that because, well, they're Nazis. Number 10. Friedrich Jeckeln. Friedrich Jeckeln was ranked second only to Himmler. He joined the Nazi Party in as early as 1929 as an SS member a year later. Infamous for his Jeckeln system for the murdering undesirables, a method where a large grave had been already dug, hundreds of people were stripped and forced to lie down and being executed en masse. Sickening. Not only this, but Jeckeln also organised not one, not two, but 3 Nazi massacres, where in total well over 200,000 innocent people were murdered. There is some good to this entry though, as he was trialled and found guilty for war crimes and hanged in Victoria Square on February 3rd, 1946. Number 9. Ilse Koch, aka the Bitch of Buchenwald. But we'll just stick to the nickname The Bitch, considered one of the most evil women in entire Nazi regime and arguably that's ever lived. For a start, she had lampshades, book covers and pillowcases made out of human skin. Now that's sinister. Nazi Party member from early 1930s, she met her husband Karl Otto Koch, the commandant of Buchenwald concentration camp. What did she do for entertainment, did I hear you ask? Why, she'd get camp guards to rape, torture and murder inmates in front of her for her amusement. Because that's normal, and maybe now the term Bitch of Buchenwald is quite a nice nickname. Koch committed suicide in 1967 by hanging while in prison after being arrested by the US Army in June 1945. Number 8. Herta Both, the sadist of Stutthof. Staying on the lines of evil female Nazis, Herta really isn't a nice lady. Labelled the sadist of Stutthof due to her awful acts as a concentration camp guard. Joining the Nazis in 1939, Both became renowned for her brutal beatings of prisoners and enjoyed watching inmates suffer while being tortured and raped. Allegedly, Herta beat Hungarian Jew named Eva to death with a wooden block, as well as shooting 2 prisoners, but she denies all of these crimes. Arrested in 1945, Herta was sentenced to just 10 years, only serving 6 as she still lives to this day. Number 7. Eugene Fischer. Father of the Nazi eugenics and German concentration camp, the biology behind the Aryan race. This man was the key reason as to why Hitler was able to implement a large amount of policies and revolutionary ideas that he did. Fischer lay the foundations that made the final solution possible. Although not joining the Nazi Party until 1940, Fischer had already illegally tested and sterilised 600 children. Not men, not women, not that would make it any better, but children. His work supported the Nuremberg laws that discriminated against Jews in Germany. Known to experiment on gypsies, African Germans and Jews, Fischer took blood and measured skulls in order to prove his racist theories, and I say prove in inverted commas. His backward views were so well respected by Hitler that he was even mentioned in Mein Kampf. Incredibly, Fischer was able to retire in 1942 and faced no war crime trials, dying in peace in 1967. Number 6. Josef Kramer and Immer Grace, the Beast of Belsen and the Hyena of Auschwitz. Josef Kramer showed no mercy while commandant of his Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, and neither did his sidekick, Immer Grace. In 1944, Kramer was put in charge of gas chambers at Auschwitz. Prior to this, he personally gassed 80 Jewish men and women. How did he sleep at night? However, when he transferred to Bergen-Belsen, he became a harsh dictator and even remained when the British liberated the camp, taking them round for inspections. Grace, on the other hand, was equally brutal. Known as the Hyena of Auschwitz, she particularly enjoyed watching the young, sick and weak suffer. Known for her beauty, she illegally had an abortion while at Bergen-Belsen. In their trials, both were found guilty of war crimes. Kramer was hanged in 1945, having shown no remorse, and Grace was also hanged at just age 22, making her the youngest woman to die judicially under British law in the 20th century. Number 5. Reinhard Heydrich, the mastermind of the Holocaust and final solution. Hitler labelled him the man with the iron heart, and if Hitler's saying that about you, Oh dear. His main crime was his chairmanship at the 1942 conference, where the final solution of the deportation extermination of all Jews in German-occupied territories was finalized. This set in stone the policies which brought about the Holocaust, making Heydrich directly responsible. However, did not make it past May of 1942, as he was murdered by a group of British-trained Czech soldiers. Number 4. Maria Mandl, the Beast, who was directly involved in the murder of more than 500,000 female prisoners at Auschwitz. Mandl was quickly promoted at the concentration camp and became responsible for overseeing roll calls and punishments, reveling in handing out beatings to prisoners. When she was relocated to Auschwitz II, her control over female prisoners was absolute. Promoting the likes of Irma Grace to higher positions, Mandl was famous for staring and standing at the gates waiting for female prisoners to turn around and look at her. Any who did were instantly taken away and exterminated. She is believed to have orchestrated over 500,000 gassings of women and children. Captured in 1945 by the US Army, she was handed over to the Republic of Poland and hanged in 1948. Number 3. Friedrich Wegener, a scientist who never got tried for his crimes. Friedrich was likely heavily involved with the experimenting on inmates in concentration camps and Jewish ghettos. However, never tried for his crimes, a keen Nazi supporter and would regularly walk around showing his membership card and his propaganda. A member of the National Socialist Party even before Hitler joined and turned them into the Nazis, he is believed to have developed and groomed the future German leader. Wegener was believed to have tested new drugs on Jews and dissected live patients in order to experiment on their still live organs. Wegener managed to keep his Nazi past hidden until his death in 1990. Number 2. It's getting quite sinister now. Odilo Globczyk, a man described as the vilest individual in the vilest organisation ever known. Odilo hoped to oversee the murder of more than 1 million Jewish Poles during the Holocaust. He also had every single one of the 500,000 Jews in Warsaw Ghetto, which contained the largest Jewish community in Europe, liquidated. A keen believer in Nazi racial superiority, he wanted to ethically cleanse all of Eastern Europe. He believed prisoners should have fed themselves, and if they couldn't do that, well, they deserved to starve. Awful, awful man. Captured by British soldiers in 1945, he committed suicide while in prison. He was to be buried at a local churchyard, however the priest refused to have, I quote, the body of such a man resting there. Number 1. Oskar Derlewager, one of the most evil and cruel of all the Nazis. A child molester and necrophiliac, had raped 2 13-year-old girls in the 1930s, but was let off due to fighting bravely in the Spanish Civil War. He rose up the SS ranks and was given his own division, which became well known for his violence. He employed convicted criminals and mental patients in his division and fed rat poison to female hostages in order for him to be able to rape them while they were in agony. Captured by the French in 1945, he died in a prison camp, likely due to ill treatment and beating, despite his death certificate stating natural causes. Did we miss any out? Why didn't you stick a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.